Hello, I'm Jim O'Brien with Own Guard Solutions, and today I thought I'd take us down a little bit different path and talk about tourniquets. And my game plan is to put together a small mini series of videos on the subject of tourniquets. And look, before we get started, for all those doctors or paramedics or nurses that know way more than I do about tourniquets and my level of training, I want to say that we're not getting into the advanced stuff. We're not talking about that. This is for those that are considering and think they might be interested in getting training for how to apply tourniquets, because they're interested in that knowledge because they might have to save a life one day. So this is meant to be a basic, simple overview of some tourniquet options for emergency use on the extremities, for those to kind of glean a little bit of knowledge from, hopefully to tease them to go and actually seek out some further training, whether it be from Own Guard Solutions or another entity closer to them, and just to give somebody some basic knowledge about a tourniquet, and if nothing else, maybe to, if they're afraid of tourniquets or have heard bad things about tourniquets, maybe dispel some of that along the way as well. So again, be gentle in the comments and the reviews of these videos in this mini series that I'm about to do for you. So I have a smattering of tourniquets. I don't have all of them that are available to the general public. I didn't want to spend the money, and quite honestly, there is zero reason for me to have all of them, except for maybe this video. So what I'm going to do is walk you through those that I have. We're not going to talk about application of them today, but that is part of the plan for the series, as some other important aspects to think about and to do when you're setting up and getting your tourniquets ready for your basic trauma kit. So let's get started. So what is a tourniquet? I think the simplest definition of a tourniquet, at least in the context that we're going to be talking about them in, is a tourniquet is a device meant to slow down and or shut off the flow of blood to prevent death, really. And so not all tourniquets are meant or designed to shut off blood completely, but we'll talk about those categories here in a minute. What we're focused on specifically is emergency tourniquets, which is a category. Emergency tourniquets for use on the extremity, meaning our arms, and I'm wiggling my toes too, you just can't see, on our arms and our legs, and they are meant to shut off the flow of blood. So what are the categories? So that's what a tourniquet is. What's the categories of tourniquets? One is emergency, which we just kind of talked about, and those tourniquets are designed to shut off the flow of blood entirely, because we're trying to keep that precious red fluid inside the body and not out on the ground. The next category, which is also designed to shut off the entire flow of blood, are surgical tourniquets. And if any of you have had orthopedic surgery, there's a good chance that you've had a surgical tourniquet applied of some sort and may not have even known it unless your doctor or surgeon told you before or after the surgery. But tourniquets are used quite a bit in surgeries, especially when it comes to the limbs. The next is rehabilitation tourniquets. Now they're a little bit different because generally speaking, they're not designed to shut off the flow of blood completely. They're designed to slow down and hamper the flow of blood slightly to kind of starve the muscles. And the idea behind that is to help grow or regrow muscle in rehabilitation scenarios. And then the last one I think we're all familiar with, if you've ever had blood drawn beyond the prick of the finger, you have likely had a clinical tourniquet put on. And we've all known the nurse to come in with those very light and flimsy rubber bands and wrap them around our upper arm, our bicep, and get us ready to have that blood drawn with the needle that we all know and love, right? So those are the four categories of tourniquets. Today, though, we're going to be, again, focused on emergency tourniquets specific for use on the extremities, the arms, and the legs. Now, there are some tourniquets that can be applied to junctions up in here and in the pelvic girdle, the hip, that sort of thing. We are not going to be covering those, and I don't suspect too many of us are going to buy those sorts of big, bulky, expensive tourniquets when the chances of us having to use those particular ones are even slimmer. So I won't be showing you any of those, but what I did want to do for this first video in the mini series is I just wanted to walk you through some of the ones I have and talk about some that you likely want to consider keeping in your kit as well. So the first one you may or may not have seen before, this is the RATS tourniquet, and that's Rapid Application Tourniquet System. And it comprises of a very narrow, somewhat elastic, got a little bit of stretch in there, make it twice its length, I guess, before it draws back up again. This is by Rapid Medical. And you simply would slip this over your arm or over your leg. It would probably be very difficult to thread back through here, especially if your fine motor skills went out the window. But if you can keep it on a loop and use it this way, you would cinch this down. Instead of doing it myself, wrap it around several times, you know, pulling tension on it, obviously, and then clip it off. So that's the RATS. And again, I'm not doing a deep dive on application. The next is, I think, a good example, and I know it's been referenced at least one place as a clone. This is a Recon medical tourniquet. It's a little different than even the thing that I think it's been made after. I think they did it to say that it's improved. Some could argue that. A lot of the windlass rods on the market today are plastic or polymer of some sort. The Recon medical tourniquet is a aluminum windlass. Could say that's stronger. And then the threads used in the stitching of the strap and the belt are Kevlar. And we all know, or at least some of us know, that Kevlar is a pretty tough textile, pretty tough material. So this is an example, I think it's safe to say, of a clone. The next one is the SWAT-T. It is, I'm going to look up the company that puts out the SWAT-T because I'm blanking right now, so I'm going to cheat and look on my handy laptop. Just one second. Sorry, I should have remembered that. This is by Safeguard Medical. It is the SWAT-T because it's stretch, wrap, and tuck. And so you'll see it has quite a bit of elasticity. It's non-latex. But the idea is that they give you some imagery here, some ovals and diamonds that indicate when you've stretched it enough as a tourniquet that you've done good. So the ovals turn into circles, as you might be able to see, and the diamonds turn into squares. And that's a pretty good workout there too. Like all of these, someone's going to come along and say it's not the best as a tourniquet. You have to decide for yourself. I think this is still viable to have in your basic kit, and I'll tell you why. It still serves two purposes. With its elasticity, you can use it as a compression wrap, meaning you got bleeding under control mostly, you got some gauze down there, you want to put some compression down. Obviously you're not going to put in a lot, but you could use this very easily as a compression wrap. And then honestly, if you don't have an ace bandage or similar in your kit, this could be used as an ace bandage because of its elasticity, you know, for wrapping up into a sprained ankle, elbow, wrist, whatever. So having this in your kit is still a great idea. It may not be the best tourniquet for yourself, and as you get yourself training, you'll experiment and likely experiment. You may experiment with multiple tourniquets, or you may just use one that is kind of the go-to for training, and you'll figure out for yourself what you want to have in your kit. That may be one to consider, but you may want to consider it for those other couple of reasons I mentioned to you. The next one I want to show you, I think, is a super cool one. Again, pros and cons. I learned about this in some more advanced training I did a little over a year ago. Some of the guys there had it. I thought that was cool. It's by SnakeStaff Systems. SnakeStaff Systems. Again, it's another windlass tourniquet. Has a couple of unique features like this metal clip to help hold in the windlass clip. After you get it in there, and then it has this glow stick here that you can break. So, you know, if it's after dark, you can still see the tourniquet on the patient. It is thinner, not quite as thin as the rat, but thinner than most of the others by a bit, which makes the overall, because it's thinner and smaller, it makes the overall package a lot more compact and a lot lighter. But this is a great option to stick down in your purse or your pocket anytime you leave the house, and you'll always have a tourniquet on you. So just an option, just saying, throwing it out there. Now, I'm going to show you a tourniquet. It's not a tourniquet in the lineup to consider, because it's actually just an example of what not to have and a bad example. This may look like some other tourniquets, one of which we just talked about, another one we'll get to. This may look like those tourniquets, but it is not. This is a cheap, very inexpensive knockoff. You do not want to purchase knockoffs for your tourniquet use. Why? Knockoffs break. Ask me how I know. I broke at least one, if not two, in training last year. They are cheap. So you say, well, how do I know when I'm getting a knockoff? Well, the telltale first and foremost sign is price. Any tourniquet, decent tourniquet is going to be, any decent tourniquet you're likely going to buy for yourself is going to be north of $30. Let's just say $30 plus, okay? If you see a 2-pack of a tourniquet that looks like the one you think you want to be getting for yourself, if you see a 2-pack of those for $15, you know it's a cheap knockoff. Do not get it. Is $30+ for one piece of gear in your kit expensive? Yes, and I know for some that's very expensive. And again, you can always do basic direct pressure to stop the bleed. In fact, that should be the go-to in a lot of cases. That direct pressure is really key in getting the bleeding stopped. But if you're going to step it up to a tourniquet, which you do want to consider having, you want to spend the money to get the right thing, the authentic thing. Don't buy the cheap knockoffs. They're not worth it. And if you bought a tourniquet to have and use, the last thing you want to have happen is it break on you when you're trying to apply it, especially if you only keep one in your kit. And we'll talk more about that in coming up episodes. So, upcoming videos, whatever you want to say. So the next three are unique and special because these next three have been approved for use by the entity that kind of sets the standards, or at least guides and tries to set the standards for everyone of what to use, what has been researched, and what has been proven to be effective. So these next three have been approved by the Department of Defense. Specifically, they've been approved by the Committee of the Tactical Combat Casualty Care organization that belongs kind of to the, or does belong to the Department of Defense. And so these next three I'll show you have been approved, and they're each got their strengths and weaknesses like they all do. But these are the three, and I would say that these are the three that you should most likely consider for yourself. The American Red Cross uses one of these three, and Stop the Bleed recommends one of these three, but they only recommend one of these three because all three have been approved, if that makes sense. The Stop the Bleed Initiative program project is very much about quality gear and making sure, if you have decided to get the training, that you consider and should only keep quality gear in your equipment, in your bag, so to speak. And so the approved, and that's important because the Committee of Tactical Combat Casualty Care has gone through the trouble to do the research, and they've been on the battlefield. And unfortunately, the battlefield is one of the best places to utilize and try out gear like a tourniquet. So they've put in the effort, and these are the three. So I'll shut up now and move on. So the first one I want to talk to you about that has a couple of unique features, and we'll cover more of that when we do the application of these tourniquets, because oh yeah, we're going to try all three of these coming up. This is the SAM Medical SAM XT. SAM Medical, and Sam is the name of the doctor, at least, who started SAM Medical, or one of the doctors that started SAM Medical, I believe, as the story goes. They're also the ones, or one of the ones that created the SAM splints, you know, the moldable, foldable splints that you can get, which I also recommend keeping in your trauma first aid bag, whatever you want to refer to it as. This is the SAM XT. XT stands for, as you might guess, extremity tourniquet. It has a couple of unique features, including their true force buckle, and we'll talk more about that in upcoming videos in this series. And then its belt has double holes, 2 holes side by side, its whole width, and that combined with its true force buckle really is pretty cool. And again, it's a tourniquet driven by the windlass ultimately to get it cinched down. The next is the SOF-T, SOF-T tourniquet from TacMed Solutions. It has some unique features too, including a one-piece belt to cinch down. Instead of having to thread and unthread any buckle that we've kind of looked at already, its buckle comes undone, making it very easy to go from ready to loop over a limb like an arm, or, you know, thread under a leg, for example, or any place you need the buckle to be undone. And we'll talk more about staging tourniquets too in upcoming videos. But again, has a windlass system. This windlass is aluminum as well, the windlass clip, and then it actually has this additional track system to put over the end of the windlass to further keep it in place. It also has some stitching here so that you know when the stitching disappears, that you've pulled it tight enough before you begin cranking down the windlass. So really cool. I think the biggest drawback of this, because the belt is so, and when I say this word, I don't mean it's a cheap belt. The belt is actually really well made and reminds me of a seat belt quality, but it is kind of flimsy. I think they sell them with rubber bands, and so you're definitely probably going to want to keep a rubber band or two around this thing when it's in your kit. But love that tourniquet as well. The last is the infamous North American Rescue CAT, Combat Application Tourniquet. This is the one near and dear to my heart. It's the one that I've trained numerous times with over the years. For me, and I think a lot of folks, just because of timing of things, this has been around a while. Apparently they had some issues with it that they've since resolved over time. We're all up to generation 7. So I think they've worked out all the kinks and bugs. Again, this one, I can't even remember. I want to say it's been like the mid-90s, but don't hold me to that. I could be talking out of my backside. But anyway, this CAT Combat Application Tourniquet has been around a while. Again, this is probably one of the most knocked off tourniquets out there, although I'm sure there's more to come flooding the market. You do not want to buy cheap versions of this because they won't be the real deal. Again, you have to kind of get through training, play with some options, figure out the ones that are right for you. But I think deciding on some that maybe have been approved, certainly starting out before you do a lot of training or do more advanced training, certainly is the way you want to go. Having quality medical gear in your gear bag is key. So with that, that wraps up our first video in this series. We'll hope you stick around and come back and watch the others, because we're going to have a lot of good information out there for you. We'll scrap a little over half of what I've showed you today just to focus on tourniquets generally speaking, and then when we go to apply them, we'll work on these 3 that have been approved by the Committee of Tactical Combat Casualty Care. So stick around, that's a mouthful. We'll see you soon.